Land back, everybody, land back. Welcome to the Revolutionary Book Trap. My name is Chief Oju, represent the nations of Africa and Boriken. I represent the working class with some petty book contradictions, and I use he/him pronouns. And I am the international chief of agitation and propaganda here at Black Hammer, which means getting the word of the revolution out to you and our people in whatever way that we can, whether that is through these lives, through these videos, through writing, like our Black Hammer Times newspaper, through art, through music, whatever it is that can get the revolution and revolutionary word to our people is how we do it. Yes, and I got an amazing co-host with me. Who is you?
Land back, everybody. My name is Watakame. I represent the Coca and Wirarica people of colonized Mexico, as well as the poor and working class. I use they them pronouns, and I am the chief of staff for the Ministry of People's Affairs, where we're daily battling this Rona, giving tips, mailing out those free masks through our website, blackhammer.org/free mask. And also preparing our people for these natural events, giving out that life saving information on how to prepare, what to do during, and what to do after to make sure that you and your loved ones stay safe. And I love every single minute of it, as well as, doing the on the ground work here in the Chicago chapter, which is never stopping and always exciting.
Yes.
So, yeah, land back.
Yes, just never stopping. We always doing what we gotta do, recruiting our people, getting them to help us get resources for our people. It's a big part of what we're doing today. And yes, no, we are, so actually it's exciting to have the NPA office be in Chicago because of just how many things our people go through here that need to be addressed. It was just recently warm again, and you can already see some of the contradictions coming around. Like you can see lots of melting water, so a lot of water coming up. You can see that people are going to start ending up back out on the streets because the shelters are going to be closing up again spaces. The warming centers aren't going to be open anymore, and so yeah, all those contradictions are coming to the surface again.
Yeah, and don't get it twisted. The heat kills as much as the cold.
Yes, indeed. Like I was saying, in 1995, there was the Chicago heat wave that killed over 900 people here. Just in the city.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. So we're gonna be still working 24/7 to make sure our people are protected from the elements, but also are able to organize each other out of the contradictions at the same time. So yeah, land back welcomes Colibri, welcome City Builder B. Make sure that when you come into the room, you are sharing, liking, and subscribing to our Black Camera TV channel or our Facebook page, wherever you're watching from. Land back, Chief Ire. They said, I was waiting to hear from you all day long. Same way I enjoyed the Revolutionaries by Atlanta. Shout out from Nigeria. Meanwhile, it's 2:06 a.m. here. Our people matters most. Ooh, salute, Chief. Yeah, that's such a beautiful comment. Thank you for leaving that. Yes, no, like as revolutionaries, what keeps us going is the people, but also the work that we do with each other, right? And seeing how much we serve and inspire the people in Nigeria or in Atlanta or in Chicago, wherever we're at. That work also keeps us going as much as the people keep us going. So yeah, Chief Ide, I look forward to hearing from you during the book chat every single time we do it as well. So thank you for being here. It's actually so late. Make sure you get some sleep, Chief. I know you were all on outreach today, but get this political education first. But land back. Yes. So, we are in the midst of reading and almost done with an amazing book. And we are reading
Open Veins of Latin America by Eduardo Galeano.
Yes, and Eduardo Galeano is a writer from Uruguay who has written this like extensive history of the stealing of and looting of resources throughout Pachamama and Turtle Island, and extremely detailed and extremely studied. And as much he wasn't necessarily a revolutionary, but this is a good background information for revolutionaries. To help us politically educate ourselves and the people. About like the lives we're living. He writes about the mines and the gold and the copper and all these things that our people are being forced to mine themselves to death to get.
Mm-hmm.
And this book helps explain like why it happened, where it started from.
Mm-hmm.
And the Black Hammer Party is telling you where we're going.
That's right.
That's the difference, right? But yes, as you come into the room, hashtag shared when you shared it. You want to share into as many groups, Facebook DMs, Instagram DMs, tweets as possible. Let's make sure that we are getting this word out as much as we get out any news about Kanye or Kim. You gotta get out this news about the revolution too, right? Because Kanye and Kim ain't saving your ass.
They don't even know who you are, and they don't care to.
No, they don't care who you are. If you need help, they ain't gonna come to you. All right. But the revolution will come to your aid. And so make sure you share. All right. And then also what's even more important is that you
Donate. All the work that we've been talking about, right? All the work that we do every single day, it requires resources. Like Sunday is a big day for the party. We although we do serve the people every single day and we give out resources every single day. Sundays when we have that revolutionary church, right? In Atlanta's largest street ministry, which is not just like a title that the party has, but like it's the work.
Mm-hmm.
We have that because of work, and that work requires like I said, those resources. So donate, right? Like what we tell people all the time, it's like a few bucks, whatever you got, can make the difference in saving someone's life through those resources. So any little bit counts, a lot counts better.
Yes.
So donate, so that we can continue this work and liberate our people.
Yeah, a lot counts way more. Yes, and like these are resources help us get this food. These resources like sleeping bags, like tents. These things help us get resources to serve our homeless people and leaders. And we're gonna keep on getting these resources. So donate on Cash App, BlackHammer.org. And if you know what amount you want to do, put it in the comments, right? Or if you got to pledge a certain amount, put it in the comments. You want to give 5, you want to give 10, you want to give 15. That ain't a problem. Go ahead and drop that and let the people know that you support getting people resources so that they can live better lives in order for them to be the leaders that they are. All right? Because we don't want any obstacles in the leadership of our people, and that is one of the biggest jobs of a revolutionary.
Exactly.
To minimize the amount of obstacles to leadership of our people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah? That's right.
Yes. So make sure you donate, and share. But before we get into our read that back and into the book, we got our book trap trivia. So you better take out your books. If you've got a physical book, take it out. If you don't have a physical book, you can get yours at blackhammer.org/library. That's where you can get the free PDF so you can follow along. And again, we're reading pages 197 to 223 today. So let's see what our trivia question is and see who was paying at least a little bit of attention to what they were reading. All right, let's see.
Even just a little bit of attention, yeah. The question is, the institution responsible for putting Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and more into massive debt through loans was the A, International Monetary Fund, B, United Fruit Company, C, UNICEF, and D, Ford Motors.
Okay, so was it the International Monetary Fund, or IMF? Was it the United Fruit Company, which is also Dole? So if you like your Dole pineapples, that's that company. Is it UNICEF? I'm not sure if they still do this. Remember, I don't know, back in the day, they used to give us little boxes to put coins in for UNICEF. Did y'all ever have to do that?
I did that for Lent.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know, put in the comments if you're old enough like me, where they would give a Halloween. They would say, like, if you go out trick-or-treating, take the box with you and let people like donate pennies and dimes and stuff.
No.
Oh yeah, and to raise money for this like international colonizer thing that helped like give stuff for like children. It's wild.
That is pretty crazy.
Yeah. And then D Ford Motors, y'all know 4 cards. Let's see. We got an A from Virgil. Got an A from City Builder B. You got an A from Colibri. Okay, and then but City Builder B says, but all them hoes A through D for burn. Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. No, we don't need any of these. They all represent the exploitation of our people and our land and resources. But this question, we're asking a specific one. But let's see what the answer is because you all have some answers, and it is boom. It is the International Monetary Fund, which I like. This section of the reading had a lot of talk about finances and financial stuff, which is sometimes a little hard to follow because I'm just poor and colonized, and ain't nobody teach me nothing about stocks or nothing like
No.
that. And so some of it, like at first, goes over my head, but we actually related to your conditions in the land and like the relationship we have with colonizers. I'm like, okay, I understand this a little bit more.
Yeah.
And the International Monetary Fund, I got definitely a bigger perspective on. So yes, land back. If you got the answer right, you could donate some. Because you donate some if you get it right and some more if you get it wrong.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So land back, everybody. Make sure that you are still sharing and make sure that you are still putting in these comments and subscribing. And don't forget to drop your read that back. So read that back is a part of the book that you really unite with. So a line or a passage that you really like and that you really enjoy, and that you really want to make sure is talked about. All right. And so we are going to get into our own read that backs and talk about what exactly what stuck out to us in the book. All right. But yeah, what's something that that you in general learned from this section?
I think City Builder B put it perfectly. It really just named a bunch of thieves, right? I did have to read some of these parts multiple times because, like you said, finances are I'm not the best at. But yeah, it also like really, I learned how like the Portuguese and the Spanish are some weak ass.
For real.
And like really, because we think about colonialism, or at least the way that I grew up with it, it was like, oh yeah, England was up north, Spain was south, right? And Portugal. But really, it was just England all around. Because even the colonies that were like settled by the Spanish or the Portuguese got taken over financially by Britain, which is something that I hadn't really had an understanding of until I read this book.
Yeah.
Reread this book because I read it before and I was just like, okay,
yeah,
like I read a bunch of words.
Yeah, it's like when you read just stuff outside of Revolution, it's just like
it changes the perspective for sure. Because before this book trap, I read this book like twice, I think. And every time I was like, oh dang,
like wow,
terrible history.
Yeah.
But it really does put everything into a new perspective, which I really appreciate, because it's like even if you've read something like Revolution in itself will just change the way that you see the world. It'll change even though like before I knew it was bad, right? But it really just puts things into that anti-colonial perspective. And this gets to the root, or like it gets into the nitty-gritty kind of what colonialism tangibly was.
Yes.
So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Yeah. Without Revolution, things like Asada's autobiography and even Malcolm X's autobiography.
Anything.
Yeah, anything. It's just like it has value, of course, but it doesn't have like the material value that like you want it to have for yourself, because you're like, yeah, I want this to mean something for me and how I act in the world, but it doesn't mean anything about how you act in the world until you join Revolution, right? And then you see how it can materially benefit you. So yes. Like Virgil says here, I was blind before joining the Revolution.
Well,
yes.
you already knew something because it got you here,
exactly.
Right? You already knew something because it got you here. It just teaches you so much more, and it opens up your eyes to a lot more.
Exactly. Yeah. You weren't completely ignorant to the world, because clearly there was already something that you knew that forced you to do something about it. So
don't discredit that. Yeah. Grow it.
Open your eyes wider to the point, the popping out your head. I had a cousin who could do that. It's not cute. It's not cute. All right.
Revolution is.
The revolution is. All right. So we're gonna get into our read that backs. Make sure you drop your read that backs in the comments. If you didn't pick one out already, just go back to the reading, and if there was a section that you remember more, just pull a couple lines out of it that stuck out to you that you want to talk about it, right? But put those read that backs in the comments. But we're gonna get started into ours, and I believe mine's is first. I believe I'm starting this time.
Please.
So, so this one goes, it's on page 199. So if you need to follow, it's on page 199 of the book. And it's 213 in the PDF, but yeah, 199 of the book. And it says, such usurious operations put bars around free nations. By the middle of the 19th century, servicing of the foreign debt absorbed almost 40% of Brazil's budget, and every country was caught in the same trap. Railroads formed another decisive part of the cage of dependency. When monopoly capitalism was in flower, imperialist influence extended into the colonial economy's remote backyards. Many of the loans were for financing railroads to bring minerals and foodstuffs to export terminals. The tracks were laid not to connect internal areas with another, but to connect production centers with ports. The design still resembles the fingers of an open hand. Thus, railroads, so often hailed as forerunners of progress, were an impediment to the formation and development of an internal market. The imperialist nations also achieved this in other ways, especially through a tariff policy cut to the British pattern. For example, freightage on articles processed in the Argentine interior was much higher than on unfinished goods. Railroad charges became a curse that made it impossible to manufacture cigarettes in tobacco growing areas, to spin and weave in wool centers, or to finish wood in forest zones. True, the Argentine Railroad developed the Santiago de Estero timber industry, but with such results that a local author groaned, oh, that Santiago had never had a tree. The cross ties were made of wood, and charcoal served as fuel. The lumber camps created by the railroad broke up rural communities, destroyed agriculture and cattle farming by raising pasture land and shade trees, enslaved several generations of Santiagans in the forest, and furthered depopulation. The mass exodus has not stopped, and today Santiago del Estero is one of Argentina's poorest provinces. When the railroad switched to fuel oil, the region was plunged into a deep crisis. Land back. So, we see like this is something that I was, learning, and how it's such a repeated story, even in the United States, in the way that this land's colonized as well,
Mhm.
is that everything that can be considered an investment into like the future well-being of a population of the people of the nation, like such as like railroads, right? Railroads are a huge thing for transportation, for getting people places quickly. It is one of the biggest innovations in history. And and countries recognize that. China recognizes that, right? They have built the most high-speed rails in the shortest amount of time that anyone ever has, right? Um, but of course, when that thing that's supposedly be an investment for the people is truly just an investment for a few companies and a few colonizers entering that land and stealing those resources, those investments become I don't know the financial word for it, but like a burden to the people, right? Like the people lose out on the investment because, for instance, like the railroads weren't connecting all the places in the interior of Argentina. They were just literally, like they said, like a hand. And they called this in design like a spoken wheel pattern, where
Sure.
I'm a designer. It's a spoken wheel pattern where all the lines branch out from one singular point, right? It's like the center of a wheel, center of a circle. And in this case, they're all going to the ports. They're going to straight to the ports and to wherever the resources are to bring them to the ports. It's not about getting people moving in a way that they need to in order just to maintain their lives. It's just to maintain colonialism, right? And so because of that, we're left with these infrastructures and these investments that become. I wish I knew the financial word for it. Where like, if you know, put in the comments like the financial word, huh?
A deficit?
I guess so. A deficit, yeah, right? Yeah, deficit for the people, yeah. I don't know. That sounds right.
That means the same thing as burden.
Okay, there you go. A deficit for the people, because a deficit for the people, right? Because all of a sudden then they're left with this infrastructure. Because once those companies and colonizers leave, right, and move their interests elsewhere because they sucked it all dry, the people are left with this infrastructure and this investment that is burden because they pay for it because it's still maintaining like their little livelihood that they have. It brings them to where their jobs are, which are probably still by the ports. And so it's just a continued like pattern of like pretending that colonizers pretending that they are bettering and developing the world, and then leaving behind like a skeleton of a skeleton that the people have to still use and maintain at their own expense in order to survive. Um, Either that or they just abandon it completely, and then we get ghost towns and we get like ghost areas, right? So it's just interesting to see that like that repeats. Here it is in Argentina, but that's also in the United Snakes too.
100%.
And if you see it in the United Snakes in the imperial core, then like it's just that's how you know how deep it must be in all these other places that are even poor colonized nations. So yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly like you said, like when, describing that, like, or when I was reading this, and with your summation, I definitely thought about the state that I grew up in.
Yes.
Here in the Snakes, because it's a pretty big state, right? But it has not that many people, and all of the people are concentrated in like 2, maybe 3, like metropolitan areas.
Yeah.
And like the whole ghost town thing, right? Because like where I grew up, there used to be a lot of mining.
Yes,
It was like coal or copper were like the big things. I think steel too. Whatever. The point is, the only railroads that went across the entire state was not for like people transportation, but to like transport the goods.
Yeah.
Right. To transport the goods. And like you said, most of it now, like most of the center of that state is just ghost towns.
See.
And it's pretty crazy, like, because they're weird. And I mean, they're all colonizers, so I don't really care. But like, if you go to them, like it's sad to see the land that way. And like the people there are a different time. Anyways, like I said, colonizers get weird when they're poor.
They put the ghost in ghost town.
Yeah, no, it's so crazy. But like you said, like, right, that infrastructure, because like because the trains that do transport people, they be breaking down.
Yep.
Every 2 hours.
Yeah.
Every 2 hours. Have intimate knowledge. And it really is like that. Because again, the priorities are straight. It's not because of, it's not an oversight. And we see that even here, like in Chicago, right? Like with the L and like
the L is the same design of a spoke car.
Yeah, the loop.
Yeah,
exactly. Or like like when the infrastructure is built like for the people, it's barely. Right. That's why places like Atlanta steal millions of dollars from those infrastructures. Right. Like they recently stole millions.
200 million.
200 million from MARTA. Right. And our commander in chief and our Atlanta Hammers went down there to call them out on it. But yeah, like that's why you see stuff like that, because they don't actually care about infrastructure for the people. Whereas you have China, where they do, and they do build the super high speed, super safe trains in like record time, because they do care about providing that infrastructure for the people, right? And this, I mean, you can find a million examples all over the world, all over the colonial world, right? But like you said, like in Latin America too, like it is like that, right? So that goes the poorest. It's the same way in the town that I grew up in Mexico, or where we're from, right? Because we used to export sugarcane. That was like our thing. And then once the fields dried out, the state stopped like doing anything about it, stopped whatever. Where development stopped at septic tanks.
No, see, look at that.
In the town where we're from, like they don't even have like plumbing, because like that's when the sugar canes dried out, like the fields, and so they just stopped caring. 100%, right? Like it's all just to keep people like, what's the word?
Just like alive enough to do this.
Yeah, like it's just crumbs, right? It's crumbs. It's like the equivalent of like the freaking what they do to stop protests, right? Like they convict people, like just to keep you quiet, just to keep you like, there's a word I'm forgetting, but whatever. To keep you doing what they want, basically. But yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, keep us submissive like that. And oh yeah, that's it. And yeah, no, it's true, because they don't, the investment is not in us, of course,
Satiated.
Right? Satiated.
That was the word I was
looking for. Okay, satiated. All right. Yeah, the investment's not in us, right? It's not, and like you said, like in the hometown, like they don't want to, make sure that people have working, sewer systems or toilets or of any kind or plumbing of any kind once the resource that was there changes, right? And then the next investment you would think is either to build infrastructure for people to live in a place where they can do labor to provide for themselves and their people. No, right? It's move on next, because the people are to the enemy, to the colonizer, the people are some indispensable resource that can be used and replaced.
Yeah, and like
We're objects.
it goes to show that their investment isn't even in the resource they're stealing.
No,
Because if it was, they would provide infrastructure to keep the land fertile,
yeah,
to keep the
exactly.
people working. You know, like they just drain. Like Colibri said, they're leeches, literal parasites. They just go in for the fast money, for the fast buck. It doesn't matter who it kills or how much it damages the earth, because they think it's like this like endless supply.
Mhm.
And like it's biting them in the ass now. But
Dude, the climate, it's biting them in the
exactly,
ass. It's biting them in the ass through all the revolution popping up.
exactly, like Mother Earth is responding, is
Mhm.
responding to the abuse. And so here we are.
Here we are. Land back. All right. Make sure you drop your read that backs into the comments. All right. We want, if there's a quote in the book that you have an interest in, unite with, have a question about, we want to know it. All right. Make sure you put it in there. But in the meantime, we are going to move to our next read that back, which is from Chief Watakame, and it's on page 202. Right. It starts on 202. Okay, so make sure you take out your PDFs in your books so we can follow along. Land back.
Land back. So it's right at the bottom. The zealous Mayflower pilgrims had laid the foundations of a nation in the New England countryside. Along its coast of deep bays and great estuaries, an industrial bourgeoisie had continuously grown and prospered. In this, as we have seen, the Antilles trade, including the sale of African slaves, had played a major role, but the U.S. achievement would not have happened if it had not been kindled from the outset by a fierce nationalist flame. George Washington had advised in his farewell address that the United States should pursue a lone course. Emerson proclaimed in 1837, "We have listened too long to the courtly muses of Europe. We will walk on our own feet, we will work with our own hands, and we will speak our own minds."
The bravery.
The audacity. The caucasity.
The caucasity.
Have y'all ever read Emerson's work?
He's the poet guy, right?
Yeah, I hope you haven't.
I haven't.
I have. Don't do it. Don't do it. I got gifted a book. I was like, okay.
Someone said this will change your life.
Honestly, it was something like that. I use it for art now. Like it's my scrap paper.
Yeah.
If y'all have not seen Altered Books, you should look them up. They're wonderful. Anyways, yeah, the whole, first of all, we will work with our own hands is hilarious because
no, they won't.
They literally talk about African slaves right there, They don't even know how to do that. But yeah, my question is, and where did that get you? That's what stood out to me about this. Like, it's so funny because like the founding fathers or whatever, right? Or even now, like we heard in the freaking State of the Union, like the nationalism, the we're so proud of us and we will work hard and we'll get through this together.
They did a USA chant.
Exactly. It's just so embarrassing. Because like what? Yeah, I have so many thoughts at the same time. They all went anyways, yeah, because like the whole we will do our own thing, we will be independent, we will do this, but they're placating the same thing. Like if you look at history, like the US has always been a couple steps, a couple like eras or whatever behind England.
Yeah,
it's been the same thing, right? They went through the Industrial Revolution after, they went through the Enlightenment period after, they went through the Renaissance after. Like they're following the same thing, which is like you're not different, right? Like and it's gotten to the point where like, yeah, maybe America, like economically or world powerly, whatever, has like maybe one upped, but as far as like development, it's still behind. It's still behind trying to play ahead, which is why that's gonna be its downfall, right? That's what we're seeing now. Because they can't keep up. And and Emerson was, I mean, whatever. We will speak our own minds, right? Like that part really made me laugh too because of what we've been seeing about censorship. Which is this is not even the first time in the country's history that censorship is a problem.
No.
Um, liberals will read what is it, Fahrenheit
Yeah,
451,
45, huh?
and be like, oh my god.
Yeah, like we have to ban it in the schools. They like ban Judy Blume books. Like she wrote books in the 70s, but they were reading them when I was a kid. They were like about literally just like puberty and like growing up. It was like I want a date, and like they wanted to ban those books too.
Yeah, exactly. Like they it's the First Amendment, right? The freedom of speech.
Yeah.
But they control that so hard to
Hmm.
the point where every other sentence I'm like, wait, I had to check myself, right? And people are getting banned. People are getting shadow banned. We've been
Oh
shadow banned
yeah.
for so long.
Mhm.
Um, but it goes to show like America has this like showmanship
Mm.
of freedom and liberty and home of the brave or whatever. Um, but it takes not even a hard look to see that it's all just like this facet or whatever. Which I thought about again in the State of the Union. Because how scripted was that? It was so
So
scripted.
like
It was
beyond.
from the beginning. Like you look at the past ones, right? And it just um yeah, like I told the comrades that it reminds me of the Shrek movie. Where like the wedding where they have like the signs and it's like
Yeah.
applause or boo. It was very much like that. There's no way that all of those people like you couldn't even understand what homie was saying.
Yeah, like people on
Half the
both
time,
sides of the aisle.
exactly, and it was very much like, wait, I forgot my line. Did we go now? Okay, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
wait, they stand up.
Yeah, even I forgot what senator is, but he stood up too early.
Yeah,
And then he's like, oh, and then he got come back up again.
exactly. But yeah, it's just part just is so funny because this book was written some time ago, um, but it's still that same character that they're trying to play, and it keeps biting them in the. Huh, I said it last time. So critical. But yeah, anyways, it's just hypocritical and it makes me laugh.
Yeah, no, I totally unite with everything you're saying, and that this like nationalist flame that helps the colonizer like cement its presence in a place or cement its colonial tradition or whatever it is, that it's only really flamed by other colonizers in the end. It's that's what kind of pushes them, right? It's like the competition like in Europe between all those nations, that and to create that national strength, because all those places weren't whole countries at that time. When colonialism first started, these places weren't united nations. Like there wasn't France and there wasn't Spain. It was these kingdoms. There's all these little kingdoms that all these places are split into. But in order to really consolidate the power, compete with each other, they had to create this nationalism, create a nation, create and even use one language. You know how many languages there are in Europe? There's so many languages, but they pretend there's not because they want to seem unified as like single nations, like Spain. There's like 10 languages in Spain. There's like 10 languages in France.
And they try to do that with money too. They try to unify whatever the euro. And that backfired too. But
yeah, they're showing how much that like competition and nationalist flame it bites, like you said, bites them back in the behind, and all of a sudden they are infighting and they're trying so hard not to let it loose again, because the last time they let it loose, they were dropping atomic bombs.
Exactly, and like that, like you said, that nationalist flame or whatever is what has kept them going, right? Is that same interest in colonialism, in exploitation of colonized nations, and even now they're losing that, right? Look at every European country. Look at the U.S. They're losing their nationalist base every single day. That's why we have like I know it's like
excited.
Yes, finally. Like they're losing the only thing that kept them together, which was that unity and exploitation, right?
Yeah.
And now they have so many different ideas. Like they're split in half on how to do that and who to work with to do that.
Yeah, who will lead them?
Which you know what that means, y'all.
Get in there.
Get in there. Like it's our time. Like and like join the revolution, right? Join to fight, and unify us, right? As they're losing their unity, we need to be uniting harder than ever.
Yes.
So yeah.
No, for real. Like, and Michael Bridges said, colonialism will never produce good unity.
Exactly.
Yeah, all the unity that they claim to have is so fake and false under the system. And that's why when you see it exploding, yeah, we have to get in there and get into the revolution. And it's seize the time. It's pure seize the time. They are losing their unity in a pandemic, in an international economic crisis. That's the time, y'all. There's no other time. And like it's also just not the time. We have to see the time also because of the situation of the earth. Literally the earth is sinking or on fire, one of the two. Right? It was one of the two. And so if not now, then when? Probably never. And so it has to be now. It has to be now. Like the basis of this movement has to be built and solidified now so that the victory happens soon enough so that we can like reverse and save this earth from like everything that's been done to it.
I was having this exact conversation with a comrade the other day, because they just came out with like new science to be able to tell like tectonic shifts in the like a grain of sand, with like this new technology or whatever. And yeah, we were just talking about like if it can show us like patterns or like predict patterns or like solidify or make them more accurate, because technically we have predictions or whatever. But we were talking about like I personally don't think that the Earth will let us get to the point where we do like irreversible damage. Because like yes, a lot of damage has been done. But there's been again, throwback to last year when things slowed down for those 2 weeks or that month or whatever, and how much healing happened, how much cleansing happened, right? And I don't think that humans will get to see that point, because with the damage that colonialism has been doing now, we're seeing the fall in life sustaining resources. We're seeing the fall in like air quality. Like everything that helps sustain human life is failing. So I don't think that Mother Earth will let us get her to that point. Which is why we have to do something, right? As revolutionaries, not only for like literally human life, but like you said, for the planet. So that we can see again this like fruit that our ancestors knew, right? This like harmony. But yeah, I could go on forever about that one. So
yeah, this harmony that God, like if 500 years is not a long time in the history of the planet at all, and the fact that in 500 years that it could all be undone that fast is pretty mind blowing. So don't let it get undone. Join the revolution. You can join Black Hammer at blackhammer.org/join. There's no reason to not do it. Like if you are, still like you're tired of seeing the news, and tired of seeing bad things, and you're like, I just want to shut myself out from the world, and you just keep realizing the world keeps getting to you anyway. That's because you're colonized, right? And when you're colonized and that's what you're feeling, you have to do something about it. And it won't automatically change. So you have to join the revolution at blackhammer.org/join. All right, land back. All right, we have another read that back from you, I believe. Let's get into it. I think it's on page 206.
Yeah.
All right.
Flip a couple pages or scroll a couple pages. Alrighty. Page 206, again towards the bottom, it's another 2 pages. The interests of the imperialist corporations in appropriating Latin American industrial growth and capitalizing it for their own benefit does not, of course, imply a disinterest in traditional forms of exploitation. It is true that United Fruits, railroads in Guatemala stopped being profitable, and that the nationalization by Brazil was splendid business for the electronic bond and share in international telephone and telegraph, which received indemnities in pure gold for rusty installations and museum piece machinery. But if public services are abandoned for more profitable activities, raw materials are a different matter. How would the Imperium make out without Latin Americans' oil and minerals? Despite the relative decline in mining investments, the U.S. economy cannot, as we have seen, do without the vital supplies from the South and the juicy profits they bring. Furthermore, the investments that turn Latin American factories into mere cogs in the giant corporations' machinery do not in any way alter the international division of labor. There is no change in the system of intercommunicating arteries through which capital and merchandise circulate between poor countries and rich countries. Latin America continues exporting its unemployment and poverty, the raw materials that the world market needs, and on whose sales the regional economy depends. unequal exchange functions as before. Hunger wages in Latin America help finance high salaries in the United States and Europe. Brazil, despite its industrialization, continues substantially dependent on coffee exports. Argentina on the sales of meat. Mexico exports very few manufacturers. Land back. Yeah, so this one is just, again, emphasizing, for me at least, that no matter how different the colony may look, or like that what they call development, right? And the expansion of civilization or whatever, the relationship stays the same, because it is a colonial and colonized relationship, right? That hasn't changed in the last 500 years. So although it might not be as many raw materials or as many like slaves, literally, it might look differently, but the outcome is the same, right? Like I said, more poverty in colonized nations and more people getting rich in the colonized nations. Um, and it's just so black and white. It's at least, but I think like it does look a little bit different, and I think it goes on a little bit to talk about or a little bit before this, it talks about inflation too.
Yeah.
About like how technically, if we go just by numbers, right, the wages in Latin America are higher. But also, like I was looking the other day, the peso in Mexico is up to like 20 pesos per dollar.
Okay.
So like $1 is 20
20
pesos
pesos.
in Mexico, right? And I it just brought me back to one time I overheard my parents talking about, and they were like crying and freaking out when the peso hit 11. Like the dollar, it was $1 per 11 pesos, and my parents were like freaking out because they didn't know how their family was gonna survive. They didn't know how, like, anything, like it was just like devastating to them.
Yeah.
And then I slightly remember when it hit 13, and I hadn't paid attention to it because
Yeah.
we live here and whatever. But I was looking it up, and it hit 20, and it caused me a lot of reflection to like my parents freaking out about when it hit half that.
Yeah.
And how in less than 10 years it's doubled.
Yeah.
Like that part, like that was insane to me. And like with the inflation that we're seeing now in the snakes, it's only going to get higher.
Yeah.
It's going to keep shooting up because that's how they do it, right? They also talk about that in a little bit, how that also just increases or like sustains the debt. Because although they're paying higher, most of that pay still goes to interest for like international debt and stuff like that. And just it's such a call to action, or it should be, because those wages do nothing. Like the more inflation rises, the poorer our people are, even if they technically have more money, because the prices of everything goes up.
Yeah.
Like gas right now is insane.
Yeah, you all know that.
Yeah,
It's like five something average in California. The average, the middle is 5 something.
Yeah, that's insane. And it's one of those things where it's like, what are we gonna do? We need gas. Like our people, it's like we need gas, which means we cut other stuff out, like food.
Yeah, exactly. Like in the news today, Biden just did a big push for remote work to end. That was like a big push he said today. Like everyone should get back to the office
without masks.
Without masks. So they're ending masks, saying get back to the office, but nothing's getting cheaper. Everything's still more expensive, and people are like, "Well, I'm not going to end remote work because I need gas to get to the job."
Or what are we gonna take, the falling transport, like we just talked about, like the trains? Public transportation is on an all-time low. And it's dangerous, like it's like physically unsafe.
Yeah, fares, yeah, all-time high. Yeah, unsafe, like because of like the mental health crisis this whole time period is putting our people through, like the things that people are doing at train stations now, like yeah, it's just like it's not safe no more, and that's because colonialism is pushing everyone to the edge. And when the prices are pushed to the edge too, like the gas, like you said, the inflation with the peso to the dollar, that creates a situation where like things crumble really, really fast. And when things crumble really, really fast, it's very easy for our people who are the poorest to get caught up in the crumbling and fall with it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're fighting against. We don't want our people to fall with that.
But like that reminds me of a PE we read this week from Mao. Is everything is terrible or everything is great
fine.
or
Yeah.
everything is fine. Look it up. It's so powerful. It's Mao talking about how like as revolutionaries, just people in general, we're talking about how terrible things are, and how no matter who you ask, hey, how's it going or whatever, it's terrible. But it's not.
It's
Because when the colony is terrible, it's actually great. It's fine for us, right? It's fine for the peasants, right? It's fine for the lower class, because like like what I was telling Oji and Cantule was like, things for the poor working class are terrible either way, technically, right? Like our material situation, like it doesn't really change. But it's great, it's fine for us because it wakes people up and it calls people to action, right? And it calls the class, the true leadership of the revolution, to action. So it might seem daunting to look at the news. It might seem daunting to like look at the material conditions or what they're pushing and like in the news and the media. But just remember that means that it's time to rise up.
Yes.
It's time to wake up. It's time to go find our people, have our people find us, right? And really, for revolutionaries and for the poor working class colonized people, everything is fine. Everything is fine because it can only go up from here for us. Exactly. Right? As it falls for them, it goes up for us. So like it's important to not like to like maintain and build up that revolutionary optimism.
Yes.
So I cannot stress it enough. Like look up that PE. It is so powerful. And it's so true, right? And as revolutionaries, we have to maintain that optimism of like everything is fine, right? And Commander says it too. Like exactly. as things are falling, we should be celebrating. Like during this crisis of the colony, we should be celebrating and working harder than ever to bring our people in. But yeah.
No, full unity with that. Yes. And there's no middle ground with that. Either it's terrible or it's fine. And how Mao says it, the people who say it's terrible are this national bourgeoisie that's like mentioned here, right? That petty bourgeoisie and of course the bourgeoisie, like the colonizers as well, who are saying it's terrible because they're finally suffering and losing the resources that they're stealing and looting. But of course, when we see that, if you see a sellout losing and it doesn't make you happy, then I don't know what's wrong with your brain and heart. You need a little bit more optimism there, because that's the best thing in the world. See a sellout losing, like the day that Barack Hussein Obama, that's thrilling. The thought of that's thrilling and exciting, and so it should be exciting for you too. And so like as much as like like this crisis like deepens, and like as much as like you read that back lays out that that it is deepening like that, and that these nations were only surviving based off these like singular exports because of all the debt they were in, or how limited like their industrialization ended up being. That there's some good that could come out of it, out of the crisis. Like Virgil says, down with the pigs, up with the colonized peoples. Yes. Land back, everybody. Land back. All right. So make sure, again, you are sharing. Keep on sharing. We're still going with our read that backs. Keep on sharing. And don't forget to drop your own read that backs in the comments. We would like to see also what y'all thought about and what was interesting to you. Okay. But we are going to keep on moving with our read that backs. I have one next on page 213, y'all. Oh, land back, Arandano, land back. We are going to, be on page 213. So get out your PDF or get out your book so we can talk about it. Okay? So, I got to turn to the page myself. Okay. So it says, the industrial bourgeoisie is a dominant class dominated in turn from abroad. The chief latifundistas on the Peruvian coast, now being expropriated by the Velasco Alvarado government, are also owners of 31 transformation industries and other assorted enterprises. The situation is similar in all the other countries. A few hundred families own the factories and the lands, the large businesses and banks. Mexico is no exception. The national bourgeoisie, subordinated to big U.S. concerns, is much more afraid of mass pressure than of imperialist oppression, in whose bosom it is developing without independence and without the creative imagination attributed to it, and has efficiently multiplied its interest. In Argentina, the founder of the Jockey Club, center of latifundista social prestige, was also the leading industrialist, and thus an immortal tradition was born at the end of the past century. Manufacturers with fattened bank accounts marry landlords' daughters to gain entry to the oligarchy's most exclusive salons or buy land for the same purpose. And not a few cattle ranchers have, at least in boom periods, invested capital surpluses accumulated in their hands in industry. Faustino Fano, Faustino Fano, who made a good part of his fortune as a textile merchant and industrialist, held the presidency of the Sociedad Rural for 4 terms before his death in 1967. Quote, Fano destroyed the false contradiction between agriculture and industry, his press obituaries proclaimed. Industrial surpluses are turned into cows. The powerful Ditella brothers sold their auto and refrigerator factories to foreign capitalists and now raise prize bulls for Sociedad Rural shows. Half a century ago, the Anchorena family, which owned Buenos Aires province up to its borders, built one of the city's biggest metallurgical plants. In Europe and the United States, the industrial bourgeoisie made a very different kind of entrance onto the stage of history and grew and consolidated its power in quite a different way. The man back. So yeah, these families, right? Of course, of course, colonialism is bigger than families, right? It's not just like special families that own things, which is like kind of like the Ku Klux communist white leftist kind of take on it. They're like, oh, it's just these like singular families that have taken over the world, and sometimes a lot of times it is in the sense that the people who are really in charge aren't the presidents. It's the wealthy colonizers that are taking up these resources, right? Uh, and it's but in our colonized nations, the people who aren't necessarily the colonizers, like the people who look like us, which is the petty bourgeoisie, these people who have access to the resources. They don't own the resources because that's what they're colonized still, but they have access to them as petty bourgeois people. That their interest is to just represent those companies and represent the colonial interests on our land. And so they will, let's say there's a family that does own their own their own oil farm or something. I don't know. They own their own enterprise of some kind. At one point, this petty bourgeois family is gonna sell it. They're gonna sell it to Standard Oil. They'll sell it to BP or whoever it is, and they'll get the money from that. And then look who has another chunk of the resources and land of our colonized nation, that colonizer company. And these colonizer companies are constantly making deals with the sellouts, constantly making deals with sellouts to get them to sell land, because to the sellout, they don't want to work. They don't want to work. They want to be comfortable. And so they're like, yeah, I'll sell my business for $5 million so I can just raise prize bulls at the Sociedad Rural. That sounds amazing. That's what they say, right?
Yeah.
And those sellouts again push our people deeper and deeper and deeper, because who's still left on the land afterwards? The peasant workers, who now, instead of working for that sellout, are now working for that big company, that big colonizer company that pays them even less. That pays them even less, and probably treats them even more horribly, right? Because now they're even more of an object. They were already an object under the petty bourgeois owner, but now under the colonizer owner, they are now completely dispensable. And disposable. That's what it's disposable, completely disposable. And we have to make sure that we inform our people that no matter who's above you, the fact that there's someone above you means that you don't have control or dictatorship over your life or labor or resources or land. That's what that represents. And of course you can have leadership, but none of these people are your leadership. They're your exploiters. They're your oppressors. They're the boss is not your friend. Okay. And Yeah, it's just that these pieces of our land that might seem like they're still left and untouched, if they're under the hands of like petty bourgeois landowners, they're gonna end up still in the hands of the enemy.
That's right.
And so we can't let that happen. Like it says, Mexico's no exception. None of our colonized nations are exceptions to this.
Nope.
If we let the petty bourgeois, landlords, uh, give up our land to the colonizer with the biggest check, then we're just letting the enemy get deeper and deeper into our lives. And we ain't about that at Black Hammer.
Nope.
We ain't about that at Black Hammer. We understand that the petty bourgeois is a whole contradiction that has to be addressed, because either, again, it's terrible or it's fine. There's no middle ground to any of this.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to be on a side. Whatever the action looks like is whatever the action looks like, but you have to be on one side of the question or another. So,
Exactly. No, land back. Full unity. And like, of course, we've always seen that, right? The selling of land throughout history, but we've seen a big push of it in the last couple of years.
Yes.
Like we were talking about the other day, Mexico's last president, what's his name? Pinche.
Is that Fox?
No, that was no Pinche. Oh, sorry. Peña Nieto.
Oh, okay.
That was the last one. Fox, I think, was before him.
Okay.
FM2. Peña Nieto made the privatization of beaches legal, right? Beaches and forests. So like even where before like these resorts or whatever had to like rent out the land and like buy whatever, like to the state, right, to the country. He made it legal for them to just buy it. And so now most of Mexico's beaches are privately owned by just basic ass millionaires. That's so critical. By just basic millionaires or companies, like you said, right? And like that, it's that further, like it just shows that the petty boo will do anything to please the colonizer, to please the people that pay their paychecks, right? Who sign their checks. And this is like the whole president of Mexico. He also made novelas like educational literature because his wife was a telenovela star or whatever. So only her novelas became like literature for school.
That's wild.
It was a whole joke. He's the Biden of Mexico.
Oh,
like
okay.
just the dumb, just dumb. Yeah. But nothing has even changed on the current president, like AMLO or whatever. Like I remember when he got elected or whatever, everyone was so excited because he was like for the people. And my dad said this thing that I think about all the time, and he was like, if he's a good guy, they're gonna kill him. If he stays alive, he works for them. Which period? Like that's it, right? And I don't think I need to clarify who them is. It's who we've been talking about, right? Like these colonialists, like the petty boo, and all of these people who have the interest of a few ahead of the interest of the many and the masses, right? And that's not us, right? Like where point number 1 says we deserve dictatorship over our land, lives, labor, and resources. And the way we do that is through revolution, revolution of the poor and working class, right? Of the peasants, of the homeless, which is point number 4.
Yes.
So yeah, no, I know we have some read that backs. So.
Yeah, no, yeah. One of the read that backs versions is mine, so we could save that.
Okay.
Arandano has one from page 208, which I believe it starts here. Let's see. Oh, the present structure of industry in Argentina, Brazil, and Mexico, the 3 tidal poles of Latin American development, shows deformations characteristic of a reflective development. With rare exceptions, the stabilization of industry in other weaker countries has been easily achieved. There's certainly nothing competitive about a capitalism that today exports factories as well as merchandise and capital, that penetrates and hogs everything. This is a global industrial conglomeration by capitalism in the age of the multinational corporation, the giant monopoly embracing every kind of activity in every corner of the earth. U.S. capital is more tightly concentrated in Latin America than in the United States itself, a handful of them controlling the overwhelming majority. I mean, yeah, like that goes with what we were talking about, but like that last part especially hits, right? That there's more capital concentrated outside of the United States than in the United States, and specifically in Latin America. That says again everything about how much they are buying up and controlling all the land that's in all these places,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said also, in this quote that all their interest is whatever it's going to be, whatever interest they need to get that land and get into end up having a stronger hold on the resources,
Mm-hmm.
they will. So if it's like balloons are popular somewhere, I don't know, whatever it is, they'll play with that and start a balloon company. But that balloon company is just an entrance to getting all the rubber trees, right? That's all it really is in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Exactly, and that just goes to show too how much they depend on our resources,
mhm.
right? And like if they depend on them so much that like you said, most of the capital is outside of the country, what happens when we take it back? Like what happens to them when the people take control of their own resources?
Mhm.
You know, apparently homie Biden got a plan for that. If you remember, he was like, "Oh, industrialization is going to be America only."
Oh yeah.
Like from start to finish, only made in America. And it's like, with what?
What?
With what?
Well, I'm trying to figure out what's one of the most like natural. Like, I mean, of course, it doesn't even belong to the United States. This land's not
No, it
there.
doesn't.
But-
Still indigenous people's
Yeah,
resources.
so like one, it's never nothing. There's no America's not real, so I don't know what's American made.
Say it again.
America's not real.
Period.
And so I don't know what is America made.
Again, even with the resources here, what happens when the indigenous people take it back?
It just like Fanon said, Europe and the United States are literally products of the third world. Like they don't exist without these resources.
Mm-mm.
And so when we take them back, they disappear.
Just that easily. Like it's about taking our resources, and then they have nothing left.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've built up this whole empire on us and our land, and right, and not our land in the way that they see it as like ownership or like control, but just like the land that we tend to,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a different relationship to the land that we have. So when we say like land back or our land, it's a different relationship to the one that they have forced on the earth.
Yeah.
Right. And when we take that land back, the poof, ¿qué tienen? Like,
Yeah, they got the rock of Europe.
Like, se les va, anyways, Spanish comes out. Like, they lose everything.
Yeah.
Because nothing is theirs. Nothing is theirs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And like I even know, like if you told all white people right now to wage a war solely with the resources that are available from Portugal to Ukraine in that whole range and say like wage global war and you can't use anything from anywhere else.
Like starter rules.
Right? They literally like they couldn't get off the continent. Because even in the beginning of colonialism, that stuff for the ships, it came from Africa too. They have literally nothing.
Nothing.
They have like carrots and beets. Like that's all they have. If you unite with people who only have carrots and beets, I don't know. I can't unite with you. That you use a lame mofo.
We're taking the carrots as reparation.
Yes, exactly.
Y'all can keep.
You all can keep the beets.
Respectfully,
you can keep the beet. No, disrespectfully, you can keep the beets.
I meant respectfully to colonized people who like beets.
Oh yeah. Well, beets can be okay. They can be a resource, but we got other options.
We got everything else.
Yeah, we have other things. That's a last resort.
We're taking the carrots.
Yeah. All right, y'all. We got another read that back from I think you want to come in.
Virgil said, beat it,
colonizers. I'm so done.
Exactly. Ooh, I'm sweating now. That was funny.
Beat it.
I imagine a colonizer dead ass coming at us with just
with a giant beat. The Beat Brigade. Hashtag Beat Brigade in the comments, y'all. That's what a new name for colonizers, the Beat Brigade. We started it here.
The Beat Brigade. That's too funny. It's like, who wins? Your beats or our everything else? Oh, also a rule: you have to give everything back first.
Yes.
Like you only fight with what you got.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you took goes back.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of metal. Is all I'm saying. Okay, my read that back is on page 215. It's another story like last time. Um, okay. The old woman stooped and fanned the fire with her hand, back bent, wrinkled neck extended. She looked like an ancient black tortoise. But her ragged dress certainly gave less protection than a shell. And after all, it was only the years that made her so slow. Behind her, the wall of her hovel, I don't know how to say that word, made of bits of wood and tin, sagged like its occupant. Beyond were similar hovels of the Sao Paulo slum. Before her, the water for coffee was boiling in a blackened kettle. She lifted a small tin to her lips, and before drinking, she took her head and shut her eyes. I'm just going to read the
O
English.
Brasil é nosso.
Okay. She said, Brazil is ours. In the center of the same city, at the same moment, the executive director of Union Carbide was thinking the same thing, but in another language. As he raised the crystal glass to drink to the firm's capture of still another Brazilian plastics factory. One of the two was mistaken.
Yes.
Spoiler alert, it was the executive that was mistaken. If you haven't caught on now. Right, and like this is so true, and I think about this all the time. And you know, this is what liberals and like Democrats love to romanticize, right? Is like, oh, behind the Capitol is like the hood or whatever, and like they take all of these like super artsy pictures of like to show the contrast between the difference from one street to another, right? And the street is, I mean, the difference is there, period, right? Like we see the clear difference between where the petty boo and the boo live and where the colonized people live, right? We see it, like we were talking anyway. We see it in the materials. We see it in the quality of even the road. Like, yeah, like here in Chicago, right? You drive up Sheridan, and it's so much more different than driving, or you drive up Sheridan. It's so much more different than driving down like Pulaski, right? And it's and you see it everywhere, every single city, every single state, not just in the United States, but every colonial country, right? You see the difference of how our people live and what resources our people are not even given, but it's just scraps, right? That we have to work until we are hoveled and wrinkled, right? To just sustain life. And our lives, you know, are used to work to maintain theirs. But like it says here, right? We say this is ours. They say this is ours. But they're the ones who are wrong, like we just talked about, right? Like it's our resources. It's our work that built this world. It's our work and our lives that have built this world, right? And that's point number 4. That's point number 4. It is the people who live in the slums, right? Who truly know the land, who truly know the work, and it's those and truly know the evils of colonialism, right? It's the people at the bottom, which Commander was talking about today in the Revolutionary Church, right? Like only the, or it was SG.
It was SG.
It was SG. It's like only the people at the bottom have seen the evils that the colony like has placed on our people, right? And we say that to the people all the time too, right? Like it's only us and only through an understanding of the real colony that those are the people who know what it takes to fix the issues, right? Which is a complete overturn of power, which is a complete overturn of resources, because it is ours.
Yes.
Right? Brazil belongs to the poor people in the slums, right? To the poor colonized people, and so on and so on and so on. It doesn't matter what city you are, it's a state, what country, like it belongs to the poor. It belongs to the poor colonized people. Like it is your land. Like feel prideful in that, right? Like not in this nationalistic way that keeps the colonizers together, but in that camaraderie with your people and with your land, right? Like that ownership, like everything you see, like that's mine. That's mine, right? Every you know, like here in Chicago, we look at the the picture of the city hall here, I'm like, it's ugly, but it's mine.
Mhm.
You know, or like it's stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like like it's yours.
Even in the American Concerning Violence, a documentary concerning violence, there was like the disgusting colonizer who was talking about a young African man who was talking to his mother-in-law about the car she drove, and he told her, come next year, that car is gonna be mine. Like he was claiming that, and what she said to him was, "You see this match? I'll burn this car before I give it to you."
It's like, girl, ain't nobody asking you to give it.
Yeah,
First of all,
exactly.
no one's asking you to give
Exactly,
it
exactly. We'll claim that it's ours, and don't worry, we'll take it.
before you have a chance to light the match,
Mhm.
right? Like you won't even get to that point because of whatever. But like it's so important, right, for our
Mhm.
people to have that ownership and like
Mhm.
claim that and know their place in the world, which is on top. It
Mhm.
is the leadership of the revolution, right? And that's where people are. And as revolutionaries, it's our job to make them see it and to give them the tools, all the tools,
Mhm.
to take that back,
Mhm.
to take their resources, to take their land, to take their lives, labor, everything. And so yeah, that story was just so powerful to me.
Yeah.
And it's point number 4 all around, right? And so yeah, I'm back.
Lean back. Oh, that's really good. I almost don't want to like my Vida back is informative, but that's a really nice place to end. I don't know.
Information is good.
Information is good.
I don't know why I
Right?
said it like that.
All right, but it's information about why things are not our fault. So it's still
That's beautiful.
yeah, it's still a good thing. All right, we're gonna do our last read that back, y'all. It's gonna be on page 220. Keep on sharing. There's no reason you can't share this far into the show. If you ain't shared it in no groups or on Facebook, then go ahead. Or starts on page 219. It's like the beginning of the last sentence there. All right. But yeah, let's get into our last read that back. Because I don't even have to comment on the rest of yours. You laid it out so beautifully. That was really good.
Okay.
So it says Brazilian concerns had to pay almost 50% interest on credits they obtained with difficulty at home. The inventor of the measure, Roberto Campos, offered this explanation. Obviously, the world is unequal. Some are born intelligent, some stupid. Some are born athletes, others crippled. The world is made up of small and large enterprises. Some die early in the prime of life, others drag themselves criminally through a long, useless existence. There's a basic fundamental inequality in human nature and the condition of things. The mechanism of credit cannot escape this. To postulate that national enterprises must have the same access to foreign credit as foreign enterprises is simply to ignore the basic realities of economics. According to this brief but meaty capitalist manifesto, the law of the jungle is the natural code governing human life. Injustice does not exist, for what we know as injustice is merely an expression of the cruel harmony of the universe. Poor countries are poor because they are poor. Our fate is written in the stars, and we are born only to fulfill it. Some are condemned to obey, others are appointed to command. Some put their necks out, and others put on the rope. The author of this theory was the creator of International Monetary Fund policy in Brazil. Land back. So, this is just to say that in the end, no matter what they, no matter what they think, we have to make sure we inform our people that the state of the world is not just a matter of circumstance. It's not just a matter of you are poor because you are poor. That's not what it is. You are poor because you've had your resources stolen from you. You are poor because you're constantly exploited. You are poor because you do not have dictatorship over your life, labor, land, or resources. That is why you are poor. That is why you are colonized. And in order for you to overturn it, it's not just the hope that one day something reverses. Because in this thing is so non-material. It's so what's the word? Idealistic.
Metaphysical.
Metaphysical. Yes, it's so metaphysical because it doesn't have any material basis as to why things are. For instance, being poor has nothing to do with not having things, like literally not having things, right? And so we have to have a material explanation for why we are in the state of that we currently are in. And that's because we've had colonizers come from Europe and exploit and steal and loot and rape and pillage 97% of the world. That's why we're in this situation. 3% of the world literally excavated the entire planet. And for what? And for what? To have this false wealth that only creates false debt. I always like the tweet, like it says, like, oh, the world's like $3 trillion in debt. Who do we owe? Thanos? Like, like it's just, it's just this false, the thing. You've seen that too in the memes, like, like we're a bunch of people on a floating rock, and I gotta pay bills. Like what? We all our people see it. They confused as to why they are in a situation where they are poor, that they owe somebody when everything on the earth is already there. And that there's no reason that they should owe anybody, because not only is it there, they deserve it. They deserve food, they deserve clean water, they deserve all those things. And so our people are wondering, why is the world this way? And it's because of colonialism. Mm-hmm. And so, in order to overturn that, in order for this to end, because I'm tired of paying bills on a floating rock, I'm tired of constantly owing when all I'm doing is existing.
Mm-hmm. Damn, a quote. A quote.
Yeah, like what? Who do I owe? Who I do owe now, because of the situation, is my people. I owe my people some revolutionary leadership. I owe my people some revolutionary political education. I owe my people the tools for liberation, because they've been given to me, and so I'm going to be doing that, because I don't owe this colonizer, the system, nothing except its destruction. And so, you just like what Kakame was saying before, about seeing our stuff, like that's yours. Like that's, you see that resource you point to, like that's mine. That's mine, and I will have it. That's mine, and I will have it. That's my car. That's my gas. That's my home. That's my block. That's my family. That's all yours. It don't belong to nobody else. And not yours as an individual, but your people, your nation, all our nations. And so, yeah, no, land back. It's just, they want to convince us so much that the world is the way it is just because it's the way it is. And the moment you realize that that's not the case, is just a huge leap towards your liberation.
Period.
It's a huge leap. That's like one of the biggest hurdles to get over, right? That it's not just the way it is. That there's a reason.
Exactly.
So yeah, land back.
You wanted to skip this? Land back. No, first, full unity. You laid it out so beautifully. Hella quotes. But yeah, like you said, our people know this, right? Like and it's not even just like, oh, it's just a floating rock. It's a floating planet with everything you need.
Yes.
An abundance, or at some point there was an abundance of things you needed, right? And like that whole thing is something that is taught to our children, right? Like even when they ask teachers, but why? But why? But why is it like that? Because
I said so.
Because yo, I was an educator in the colony. And that was like one of my favorite days ever as an educator, was when we had the money talk, right? And it came out of just discussion. My bosses hated me because we were talking about, money, right? And so they're talking about like, oh, you need money to eat. And then I flipped the script and I was like, why? And my kids, and these are like, I think they were in 5th grade. I had them multiple years. They were in 5th grade. And they're like, because you need it to grow. And I was like, oh, does food grow in money? Or does money water the plants? No. But you have to buy the water. Is there like a vending machine type of thing? Right. And we went through that process. And we talked about electricity, we talked about energy, we talked about housing, we talked about all of the things that we need to sustain life. Right. And at the end, one of my kids was like, Miss, whatever. And I was like, and he goes, so like money's fake? And all the kids were like, oh my God, yeah, money's fake. And at that point I was like, I'm gonna get fired. But I was like, yeah, when I was like, and because whatever, I was like, you said it.
Yeah.
I was like, you said. I just asked you questions.
I'm just writing down what you said.
You taught me something. Wow, that is fake. But it's like that story to say it's not hard. Our people know this. Children comprehend it a lot easier than they comprehend economics. Like our children can comprehend the fact that colonialism is fake, or it's really real, but it's based on fake stuff. That money, we don't need it to survive. They understand that. They can understand that. I think the youngest group I had this conversation with was in like 3rd grade. So they're like 9, right? But we have to wait until like senior year of high school / college to go to understand colonial economics. And even then, I don't know, bro.
Yeah.
I when it comes to bills, I look at the number on the thing and I pay it. Because that's at this moment what it takes for me to get the resources that I need.
Yeah.
Right? My own resources. But yeah, it's one of those things like our people know, and as this colony is crumbling, they're going to start to see that it is theirs. They're going to start to see that this big power that they were so afraid of is actually very weak and delicate. Right? And that gives our people power.
Yes.
And we're going to be here to show them how. Right? Just like when we teach little kids how to share.
Yes.
We're going to get back to sharing.
Get back to sharing.
Like Commander said, right? Like we're going to get back to sharing with our own people, right? Across nations, regardless of those divisions that they placed on us to divide and make us weaker, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm back. Yeah, cool. They're paper tigers. It's fake. It's false. It's so false. And yeah, like what you said about the comment, like once our people realize that, it is game over. It's game over. All right, y'all, laying back. So we're gonna get into our announcements. I hope you enjoyed those read that backs. And if you hashtag back to sharing. Isn't it sad that we have to like that's the point that humanity is at? Back to sharing. Oh, dang.
The colony is at.
That's where the colony's at. That is where the colony is at. But yes, here are now. You watch the Revolutionary Church every Sunday on Facebook Live or on YouTube at Black Hammer TV, where you might be watching now. Okay, it happens every week and every Sunday at Woodruff Park in Atlanta. We're giving out resources to the people. We are giving them political education, inspiration. Letting people get the chance to get that testimony, right? And then recruiting people from at the Revolutionary Church and watch the magic happen live every Sunday. All right. And then make sure you still call Atlanta City Solicitor's Office. Hey, 404-658-6618, extension 5. They is arresting people for feeding the homeless. And don't worry, the Black Hammer Party has been giving response to that. But just like the Revolutionary Church today, the response is gonna be hard and extreme, and making sure that they pay up for literally arresting people feeding the homeless, because they're trying to make a whole ordinance now based off of what our hammers do. They're scared. They want to make laws. They want to make laws to prevent the work.
That's hot.
That's hot. That's hot. In Paris Hilton voice, that's hot. Wait, are you two? Wait,
I don't know.
Oh one. No, God, no! If you know what I'm talking about, if you know about the Paris Hilton, that's hot. Please don't let me be alone. All right, but yes, make sure you call that number to get those charges dropped on our hammers. Okay, and then next week is our last episode, y'all. It's our last episode. It's a bigger chunk of reading because it couldn't really get split in a way that made sense, but it's our last chunk. And so what are we reading?
We are reading Open Veins of Latin America, as we have been the last couple weeks. Pages 223 to 261. Dang. This book has so much information. I'm excited.
Yes. Make sure you call that. Oh, sorry. Make sure you call that number. I saw that in the comment. But what I was gonna say, make sure you get to reading. It's a little bigger chunk of reading. So 5 pages a day, should get you pretty much there. Okay, so just 5 pages a day. That's just back and forth on 2 pieces of paper, or right, or 5 PDF sheets. Okay, and if you need the book, of course, you could go to blackhammer.org/library to get it. Okay, and those are our announcements, y'all. We appreciate having you for our political education today. I learned a lot, got some good inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we're going to defeat these paper tigers and get back what's ours because it is yours. Okay, everybody? So, land back.
Land back.